Hey guys, thanks for tuning in. Today's video is going to be about the series configuration in hybrid electric vehicles. So let's get started, right? So what are hybrid electric vehicles? Hybrid electric vehicles are vehicles that use two different power sources or two or more power sources to drive the vehicle, right? So there's going to be uh, a conventional engine and there's going to be an electric motor. This is the most popular hybrid electric vehicle. However, there can be other power sources such as fuel cells, etc. But largely today we use conventional engines and electric motors. So there are different setups for using these two power sources to drive the vehicle. There are different ways these two power sources can work together and drive the vehicle. One such configuration is the series configuration, and in a series configuration, this is how it's going to work. The this is how it this is how a block diagram would look for a series configuration. So there's going to be an engine, a conventional engine, which drives the generator or a generator motor, because a motor can work both ways. It can work as a generator or a motor. So yeah, it's going to drive that, which is going to charge a battery, and the battery as is then going to drive a motor, which is going to drive the axle and then the wheels, right? Now, uh, this is a series configuration. This is the basic layout for a series configuration. This is not the most optimal configuration or the best configuration, uh, considering that there's going to be a lot of losses in the conversion of energy from the engine to the generator, which then charges the battery and then power delivers the energy to the motor. There's going to be conversion losses of energy from the engine to the generator in the first place, and then there's going to be conversion losses from the generator to the battery, and then from the battery to the motor. It's straightforward, simpler to actually use a transmission, which is highly efficient. Transmissions can be anywhere up to 90% to 100% sorry, 99% efficient if you design them well enough. Of course, they can be really bad too, but yeah, with careful design, they can be. In most vehicles today, they're about 90% efficient. So yeah, there's a lot of losses involved here. So that is why these configurations are not the most popular. The BMW i3 uses this configuration, and another disadvantage of this configuration is that the generator and the motor and the engine, they have to be pretty powerful, because if the motor is going to drive the vehicle, it has to be big enough, it has to be powerful enough, and if that's the case, then the generator has to be equally, or at least up to the mark, to actually charge the battery, which is going to deliver the power to the motor. And if the generator needs to be that big, the engine has to be that big. So, and all of this has to be done in the same amount of space that we have for a conventional car. So that makes the engine a lot smaller, and a smaller engine obviously causes constraints, leads to constraints, and when you need really high power delivery, when there's high power demand, this architecture tends to underperform, and that is why this is like not really a popular thing. So yeah, that's more or less it about it. There are other configurations, but that wouldn't be a completely hybrid electric vehicle. It's not a fully hybrid electric vehicle. There are other setups, like the mild hybrid and the micro hybrid setups. So something like this, where there's a motor sitting on the accessory drive, or simply a big starter motor. These This setup usually just helps in having good stop starts. So imagine you're sitting in traffic or at a traffic signal light, and you're just idling there. You're not moving. The engine is just running. It's consuming fuel, but you're not really getting any work out of it because you're not moving. So in such cases, the engine shuts off, and when you need to start this, since there's a bigger motor, it makes it easy to start the engine, and it's almost instantaneous. So I mean, it's really quick compared to what it takes, how much time it takes usually. So that way, it's really good at doing that. So it saves a lot of fuel when you are just idling. But again, if you are if you're not in city driving conditions, if you're on a highway, then this setup doesn't really help. Another way to do this is having the motor sit on the crankshaft, connected to the crankshaft. This more or less does the same thing, but again, this can this these motors are usually bigger compared to what sits on an accessory drive or the starter motor. So yeah, they give a little bit of performance, but yeah, they more or less do the same. And that's mostly about series setups. They don't they're not the most popular, they're not the most performing, so that's why there are other setups that have been ventured into. Different OEMs have come up with different architectures and setups, and I'll be talking about them in my next video, so stay tuned.